Okay, so today we are looking specifically at working with ranges and cells. So the homework that you either did for class today or is due tonight is just going to say, listen, write a program that whatever the active cell is, when the user runs that program or clicks on the toolbar that already is hooked up to that, or in the ribbon is already hooked up to that sub-procedure, so just highlight the whole row. You get to pick the color. You have some creative license here, but it does have to work when you click on that. So we're looking at how to refer to different kinds of ranges. To do that, we're going to work with this file, census.xls. Oh, hey, how come that says .xls instead of .xlsx or xlsm?
It's macro enabled.
It's not because it's macro disabled. It's kind of a different weird reason that now it's been long enough ago that I wouldn't expect you to know this. Back before 2007, this was the file extension for all Excel workbooks, XLS. And whether it was a macro-enabled workbook or no macros involved, that was just it. And so when you look at an Excel file and you look at the extension, you didn't know what you were opening. It might have been, there could have been some evil macro in there that you didn't know about. And so beginning in 2007, they said, okay, different extensions for macro-enabled versus macro-disabled. So what does it mean with this? It means I've been doing this example since before 2007. This example is more than 10 years old. At least the file is more than 10 years. I don't think the example itself is more than 10 years. So I'm going to go ahead and download that workbook. Hopefully, it'll download. Did I actually click it? And the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a macro-enabled workbook. The truth is, I can put the macros right in here, but I'd like to get it up to a current file system. So I'll just do File, Save As, and tell it to be macro-enabled. Census _ fall of 17. Okay, so take a look at this data. You get some tip because the name of the file is census. This is it. This is the data almost exactly the way I got it from the United States Census Bureau. Someone look at this data on this page 1 and tell me something about one of these numbers.
Really
They're
big.
beautiful numbers, okay? Something meaningful. You pick a number and tell me what it means. All the data is here in this workbook. Suppose your supervisor gave this to you and said, make some sense of this. You got to spend some time looking at it. Go ahead.
I see in the top left. Oh yeah, that 3.04, whatever, 3 billion.
Tell me a cell number.
B2.
Okay.
It's going to be population of
the United States.
At least the United States.
Okay, so you're looking at this and you're thinking, you're looking at this thinking, that's probably the population of the United States. It turns out you're right. At least whenever this census was done. This might be the 2000. This could be the 2000 census for all I know. Probably we'll say it here somewhere.
304 million.
What's that?
It's 304 million. Sounds about right.
Yeah, so we're more than 300 million, but yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, but you're guessing. Can you give me some more evidence from that? Just besides you happen to know that's about what the population of America, of the United States is. Go ahead.
I'm gonna guess that G is the ages between 13 and 20.
Aha. Okay, so now you're getting somewhere. You're saying, okay, there's something about this label. This must be a label for this column of data.
Or
I'm going to say it's population under 5 years old.
What's that?
I'm going to say it's population under 5 years.
Okay, now you're saying population under 5. I'm not getting that from the label at all. So how are you getting there?
Oh, the next tab over.
Next tab over is called the data dictionary. And it just has these labels here. And there it is, age 13-130-208, and it gives you a label for that. Population under 5 years old, estimate for July 1st, 2008. Okay, so each one of these each one of these columns, or each one of the columns over here on the data set, has a label, and then that label tells us something about that. Now, here's the problem, is that I've got more than one number for that. And they're not even close to each other. Some are up here in the either hundreds of thousands, or is that millions? Yeah, that's millions. And I've got some down here in the hundreds. So, any idea? So what's this one right here?
That's in the county of Bullock.
County of Bullock, Alabama. So if we come over here, back to our data dictionary, what we're going to see is that first one, state COU, that's ANSI, what's that?
So 1,000, I think, is the state of Alabama.
So we come to the county names, and we see these numbers here. Come to the top, and you're saying 1008.
2011.
I look over here in column A, I've got 1001, or 1011 is the code here, and that represents a county. What county is that? That's Bullock County. So when I look at the intersection of, well, I guess when I look at G9, that right there, this is the intersection of a particular county and a particular measure. So that is estimated population 2008 for people who are 5 and under in Bullock County, Alabama. That's what that number is. Okay, so now I think we could probably figure out what the rest of this data is. Pick a county, pick a variable, and that'll tell you what the number is. What do you think? Is this data easy to work with or not easy to work with? It could be easier. In fact, within an hour, it will be easier. So that's our goal today, is to be able to use some VBA to turn this into a tool that we can actually do some analysis with. We can easily do some comparisons between, pick a couple of counties and compare their numbers in such a way that we can understand what they are. And in so doing, we're looking at different ways to refer to ranges and cells, because that's the topic for today. And this is the way it's going to go. Sometimes, folks, it'll be where we do an exercise in class where the whole exercise is meaningful. When we do that, we don't cover as much of the waterfront that we could cover in the space of, how can we refer to ranges. Other times, it'll be somewhat disjointed, but we're going to cover more ground. So I'm going to get your feet wet with this and leave the rest of the details to you to pick up in the chat. So let's go ahead and begin by creating a new sheet that we can use just for the analysis here. So I've got a sheet 1. I'm going to call this sheet summary. I'll call it comparison. Call it compare. So the whole purpose of this sheet is just to be able to have a way that I can bring in the data from 2 or more counties in such a way that I can look at it and make sense of it. So what's going to be critical for me to be able to understand and make sense of these numbers? What do I need to have on this page? I've got to have the labels of those variables. And so I'm going to go ahead and just copy over this data dictionary. In fact, I'll probably just copy column B entirely, and I'll put it as column A on my compare sheet. And I'll get rid of item description. So we'll start here in in row 3. That should be okay. So far, so good? We're okay with this? All right. Now, I need some way to be able to pick a county. There's lots of counties. How many counties are there? There's like 3,095 counties. Does it start on row 2? Well, that's not quite true, because one of these is all of the United States, and then there's one for each state. So, but there's a lot of different choices that I can make here. So what I'd like to do on my compare sheet is that I'd like to be some way up here for the user to be able to specify which county they want to see. How are we going to do it? Any thoughts? The idea is you tell me the county, and I'll bring in the data right next to all these labels so that you can see it. You want more than one county, we'll show them all in there, and then you can compare the numbers. If you want to make a graph of those, that'll be when we talk about graphs later on. We'll kind of build on this example, but that's where we're headed. Question here?
No, I was just thinking we could use a VLOOKUP, some variation of that to grab the county.
Okay, so VLOOKUP allows us to enter some kind of value and then pull that up. So if our folks were like familiar with like the county numbers, like they knew that 1011 meant Baldwin County, that might make sense. But here, I think we need some way for them to be able to like look at a list and say, ah, that's the one I want.
So you can define a list in Excel and then make like a drop down at the very top of this.
Ah, okay, so we can make a list or make a table in Excel, and then we can have a drop down on it. I'm trying to think about where that would go. So, yeah, that would give me the data there, but I got to fit all this right here, and I got 2 rows to work with here. So I'm looking for another solution. Go ahead.
Well, could you use data validation?
Data validation is another way. And so the idea behind the data validation is that, how many of you are going, I'm not quite sure what data validation is? Just a few of you. Let's just go, let me show you how it works with data validation, and then I'll show you why I don't want to use data validation. So I'm going to come over here to data tools. One of these is data validation. Okay, not that one. This one, data validation. So on the data tab, under data tools, there's one for data validation. So data validation says, great, what do you want to go into this cell? So here I am on cell A1. What do you want to go in here? Any value, that's the default. Put whatever you want. I don't want anything. I want list. Give me a list here, and then, great, what's the source for the list? So for my source, I'm just going to go over and pull it off of the list of all my counties. So I'm going to come to my county names, and I'm just going to pull. This is the one thing I added. I actually built a column that already pre-joins the county and the state. And so I'm just going to choose this whole thing. Control-Shift-Down arrow should select that whole range. And now, the nice thing about this is it now has a drop-down, and the user can just pick one of these. That's pretty good. And this will work pretty well. You want to compare, we can go find the Utah counties. Come down here into Utah. QRSTUV. Texas is big, I guess. Juab County. Okay, so this accomplishes the thing I'm after from a usability perspective, is that the user can just pick one off the list. That's the one I want. They don't have to know any code. They don't have to go look, some other sheet for it. That's the one I want. So if we did this, and we could do this with VBA, we would now then need to take whatever they put there, and we would have to go do a search and find that county to be able to figure out what row number it's on, so that we can know which data that corresponds to over in the data sheet. That's more work that I want to do. There's another way that will be easier. And it's a way that I'm not sure any of you know, which is why it hasn't come up yet. Unless anyone else has another one they want to suggest. I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to also get rid of the data validation just by deleting that cell. Delete, shift things to the left.
Index match.
Index match, a formula approach, I think it's going to suffer from the same problem as VLOOKUP. So let's come and look at our developer tab, and we've got a toolbox here. We've used this toolbox to bring a button onto a form, but I want to bring a drop-down list. It's the next one, a combo box. It's the next one right here. So I'm going to select that tool. So developer tab, this little toolbox right here to insert a tool, and then I'm going to bring on the second one. Don't use the ActiveX combo box. More powerful, more difficult to configure. This one's a breeze to configure. First one. I'll select that, and I'm just going to draw a combo box right here onto the sheet. Now we'll have to do a little bit of configuration here. So I will right-click that and choose Format Control. Now I have to tell it a couple things. The first thing I have to tell it is, where does it get the list from? And that's the input range. So I'll select input range, and then I'll come over to my county names, and I'll select that whole set of names where it has the county and the state bound together. Control-Shift, select the first cell, Control-Shift down arrow will select that whole set of contiguous data. The cell link says, I got to have some cell to communicate back to the worksheet what was selected. And I'm going to put that in A1. I can pick how many lines you want to drop down. Maybe I want 20. I don't know. 8's probably fine. Ooh, 3D shading. That's going to be fancy. And I'll say OK. So the two critical things here is I got to tell where to get the list from and where to communicate to the worksheet which one was selected. I'll say OK. I'll click off of it. Oh wow, it just looks like it's sunken down into the sheet with the shadows here and everything. That is so fancy. Now if I drop down the list, I get the whole set here. Might be able to scroll down to Utah a little more easily. Here's Utah. We do the whole state of Utah, Utah State. That's not the university, that's the state of Utah. And it puts a number here. It doesn't tell me. This is the primary difference between data validation and this, is that data validation just selects the item that goes there. This one gives me a number. What does that number mean? Let's choose one up close to the top and see if we can figure it out. So the first one is a 1, the second one is a 2.
Yeah, it's the row.
It's a 3.
The row.
It turns out it isn't really the row number. It happens to be the row number. It's the order in which it is here in the list. So if my list didn't start on row 1, if it started down on row 20 or something, the first one would still be 1. But it's going to give me a number which tells me which item is selected here. Okay, so that's handy. So when, so this tells me, will give me some way to hook up to the county that I'm after. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is that when the user selects that county, I would like to bring in, well, let's start off by just bringing in the name of the county right here. So, I think I want to put 2 things in. County names. Yeah, what I'll do is I will put the county and then I'll put the state right here. I'm going to put the state, let's say on top and the county below. So that's the first thing I want to do with VBA. So given this, I want to be able to put bib, or Alabama, and then bib right here. So let's go to some code. Alt F11 will bring up my code window. And I'm seeing things I don't really want to see here. So let me view my Project Explorer. I think this is showing me my funcrest.xlam. So I'm just going to close that. And I'm going to insert a new module. Insert a module. That's how I got that code window. So I guess it's a little too boring for them over there on the top. Yeah, we've seen this before. Oh, it's the information session. All right, well, go learn something. You can watch the video later anyway, what the heck. All right. So, right, and that's, I don't know if I've ever really said this before, but the only place that I can put code that it will stick around when I save the workbook, it's got to be in some kind of module. There are different kinds of modules, but VBA code is in a module. That's the only place it goes. And so I inserted a regular old module. Now, if you inserted a class module, it might look pretty similar, but it would not work at all. So you got to make sure you've got a regular module. And it'll say here modules. If you've got the wrong one, it'll say something else. All right, so let's make a sub procedure. Sub. What do we call this? Show data. Okay, go ahead.
What does option explicit mean?
Option explicit. If you don't have it, it's going to be just fine.
Okay.
If you do have it, it has to do with variables. And I was thinking we're doing variables today, but it must be next Monday that we're talking about variables, so we'll cover it then.
Okay.
You can type it in if you wanted to have it exactly the same, but it's going to be okay. Okay, so talk to me in terms of an algorithm, a process. We have a number in A1. and we've got to go and figure out the state name for that. So how are we going to get to that? How are we going to get that value? We've got to put a value right here in B1 that says, in this case, Alabama. How are we going to do it? Yep.
Say, look up the value in A1, and then figure out what county corresponds to that in our county names tab. And
So like a VLOOKUP?
yeah, just think basically through the VLOOKUP
Right.
logic.
We
But-
could do a VLOOKUP. So one thing we could do is we could put a formula in here that does a VLOOKUP. So here's the thing. How many of you ever worked with a huge workbook that had thousands of formulas in it? And what was your experience with that workbook? When you opened that workbook, was it a responsive workbook? Or like when you made a change, was it like, okay, I'm going to get a ham sandwich while this thing updates? Yeah, kind of the ham sandwich approach. Okay, and so what we're going to do, that would work. We can make it work that way. But every time we put another formula into a workbook, it makes it less responsive. And so the idea here is that we're not going to be using formulas for all of these. We want to make it, look, you change it, just bring data in. So now, and don't think, take off your Excel hat and put on your programming hat. I know that your programming hat right now is really small. And so you don't have a whole lot to work with. But think about what process might you go through to say, I want to get to that information. You don't have to give me the code, just what would be the process?
You activate the county names sheet,
Okay, so I'm going to do something on the county name sheet.
and then you would go cells, whatever number was in that A1.
Okay, so what do we want? We're on Bibb, Alabama, and that's a 6. So over here on county names, so you're saying right here.
Yeah, they do cells 6, comma 2.
Okay, so what you're saying is that if I can refer to my county name sheet, and I can know what row I want to get from, because row 6, that's exactly the one that's selected over here. So I've got the row number right here. I know the worksheet, I know the row number. Only other thing I need is I need to know the column number. And it looks like my states are all in column C. And so let's just go ahead and write that code here. Now, you started off by saying activate the sheet. And when you're using Excel or recording Excel, that's exactly what's going to happen. But the big step I want you to make today is to realize I don't have to activate a cell to refer to it. I can just refer to it. There's lots of ways to refer to ranges. We just want to refer to it directly. And so we're going to have an assignment statement. So I have an equal sign here, and I will have something on the left-hand side. That's what's going to be receiving the value. And on the right-hand side is the value that I'm going to put in here. So what is going to receive the value? I want to put a value where? I'm not going to put it in a variable. I just want to put it right. I want to put it right there. So it's cell number B1. Now that I'm dealing with more than one sheet, I'm going to want to probably identify the sheet as well. And so let's get the cells there first. Several ways I can do it. What is this way? Range. So range B1. Now, what am I setting? Am I setting the color of the cell? Am I setting the formula of the cell? What property do I want?
Value.
The value.
Did you do parentheses where the B1 is? Or the quotes?
Yeah, so I've got quotes here. I think we're okay.
It's the equal sign.
No, it's expecting something over here. That's why it's syntactically incorrect. We're going to put something over here. Okay. So now here's the question. I got to think about as I'm designing this. Is this going to be, I could pick whatever worksheet I want to be active when I run this code and it'll work, or does it have to be a particular worksheet that I'm talking about? The only one that matters is compare here. So I have two options. One is I can say, let me put a statement here that says select that sheet and make sure it's active. And then once I know it's active because the code has made it active, I can just, I can say range B1 and I'll know it's referring to the active sheet. Or I can say, I don't really care what one is active when this runs. I just specifically want to go to that sheet. I don't want to select it. I want to refer to a cell on that sheet. So I could say sheets. Which sheet do I want? It's a sheet called compare. So sheets compare.range b1.value. That is the property of the object on the sheet that I'm trying to set.
Is this an instance where you could type let?
Yes, anytime I'm doing an assignment with this equal sign, I could come in here and say, let the compare sheet range B1's value equal something else. If you really like to sound like it's the voice of God, you can do that. Let this cell take on a new value. All right. But again, the let is optional. All right, so now I have to put an expression over here. I think I've used that word expression a few times. What does it mean? When I say expression, what do I mean?
Something that pops out a number.
Yes! An expression, it doesn't have to be a number, but an expression is some block of VBA code that when the interpreter looks at it, it can go, aha, that's one value. I know what that is. That's 7. Or that's Fred. Or it's something that gets me down to a value. And so I need some expression here that will evaluate to Alabama. So, first of all, what sheet's it going to be? Is it called county names? County names, no space. Now, I can go after this cell, particular cell that I'm going after, either with the range method or the cells method to get there. Because I'm treating this the row and the column separately, I'm going to use the cells method. And I'm going to skip the parameters for now. I'll come back to them. And I want the value of that cell. Cells method takes 2 arguments. What are the arguments? A row and a column. I'll put the column in first, so comma 3. So the third column is where the state name is. Now I need something to go here that will evaluate to 6.
Is that A1?
Did you dim something? Like, say
So-
dim and then just whatever letter you want.
We could
Able to
create
cell
a
on the
variable.
compare sheet, right?
Go ahead.
And so if right now it's 6, then we'll put that in, and so we know to go down 6 and over 3.
Yep, we need to do something to tell it to pick up the value off of A1. I am going to show you. Actually, I don't know if this way works. I almost never use this way because I learned to program for like a decade before I even knew it worked. There's a syntax in VBA that just lets you go like this. No quotes, just put it in square brackets. Oh, I need to print that. Question mark will print this in the immediate one. So I want to let you know about this way. And let me see if I can put a sheet reference in front of it. I'm not sure I can. Yeah, I can. So that's what I'm going to plug into here. Now, folks, so far as I know, there's no way to make this into something dynamic. This is just when you have a fixed cell reference that is going to stick in your code, and you're not going to have some variable that changes. We're always looking at A1. That's what we're going to do. You know, and I wonder, let me try something else here, which I've never tried before. If this doesn't work, I will try to help you forget it. But I'm wondering if we can take it like this. See? Yeah. Let's take that one. So essentially, it's like I can refer to a cell using the same syntax I would use in a formula if I put it inside of square brackets right here in VBA. So compare exclamation point A1, and I want the value of that. Ooh, it's kind of a long line. This is the way VBA ends up looking sometimes, as you have kind of things nested inside of each other. So a particular sheet, dot. I'm going to identify a cell using the cells method here. Takes 2 arguments. This one's pretty simple. It's just a 3. This one's a little more complex. Go find the value on the compare sheet of A1. And we're going to read the value off of that. So we're going to go to the county name sheet, find a particular cell, and bring that value in. Questions? Yes?
Is that an exclamation point between compare and A1?
That is an exclamation point. Again, that's the same way you would refer to a cell on a different sheet inside of a formula. So these little brackets kind of let you get to the way you'd refer to it if you're just in a formula. Okay, so I could run this just by clicking on the run button here. Of course, we don't want the user to have to come in here and run it. We'll have to give them a different way to run it. That is put in Alabama, or the abbreviation for Alabama right there. Now here's what I want to do. Watch this. Here's a neat trick. I'm going to right-click this drop-down list, and I'm going to say assign macro. I can assign a macro to this drop-down list. When do you suppose it's going to run the macro? Yeah, it's when you select. That's exactly what I want it to run. When you select something, I want it to put this data in. So I'll assign macro. I'll say show data is what I want it to run. Say okay, click off of it, and now pick something that's not in Alabama, and now we've got Kentucky going. Or New Mexico. Rio Arriba. If my high school Spanish is serving me, that's the river fast.
Can you show your?
Or is it the river? Is it up? It's the river up. It's the up river. High school Spanish.
Can you show the code one more time? That's so weird.
Okay. We've done several different things to refer to cells. Range, cells, and then formula notation. Okay. In-class exercise. Bring in the county name in the next cell down. So it's going to say the state name, one cell down is going to be the county name. So add a line of code here so that when you click that drop down, it puts in both pieces of information. It will take 2 minutes. You've got 2 minutes. Actually, 2 minutes and however long it takes me to start my timer.
Is it one more time? What you want us to do in 2 minutes?
Okay.
I was fixing this.
I thought you were done already.
No.
Okay, so right now it's bringing in New Mexico, but this is Rio Arriba. It's upriver. I want to bring in the county name right below here. So B1 is state name. I'll make B2 the county name. And once you have it, look at me with a really smug look on your face. That's not smug, that's elated.
Well, did you switch it to
Oh, rude. I'll be faster next time.
Yeah, so it won't let me save my macro at all.
So how do I get this?
It's something that
Wasn't there a way to do it?
I'll read on.
Yeah, you got 100 macros. 47 seconds to go. How are we doing? I need help. Look at me with a furrowed brow. Okay, we're about to go through it. Question?
Why just highlight what's red?
Okay, so red means it's accepted.
County name.
When you download that, it should save as a macro.
Okay. So I'm just going to copy this line. It's going to be really similar to this line. Now, remember the equal sign says whatever's on the left-hand side of it is going to get what's on the right-hand side. So I'm not setting B1. In this case, I'm setting B2. And it's still got, I think my data is on the same row. It's just a different county. So I got to pull in column 2 instead of column 3. And so I'll change that 3 to a 2 on this line. And so now when this code runs, this is going to say, plug a new value into B1. What is it? It's going to be the state. And then it's going to say, plug a new value into B2. What's it going to be? It's going to be the county. How many of you got that in that 2 minutes? How many of you are going, man, I wish it wasn't too late to drop this class? No one in that situation. So now, when I come to compare, if I drop down and choose something in Nebraska, Cedar, Nebraska, now get Nebraska and then Cedar, and I'm ready to bring in all these values. Whew. Questions?
So you changed it on the drop down, and then the stuff in column B changed automatically, right?
Yes.
How did you make it do that?
So the way that we're making, so we've got this procedure over here called show data. And the way that we're making this procedure run is we have bound it to this control. I'm going to right click this control and choose assign macro. And then I'll choose show data here. Yeah. And it will actually trigger that when you make a change in the combo box. So each one of these controls that you can put onto the form, they can trigger a macro. And depending on the control, it triggers it differently depending on what it's doing. And that's actually the big difference between, there's two sets of controls here. These form controls, you get one macro to run. And it's like, it's predefined. A button, it runs it when you click on it. A checkbox, it runs when you check it. A combo box. Down here, you can make the code run for almost anything. You want that code to run when the mouse moves over the top of it, make some code run, you can do that. But that's not for today. Don't try that today. Try it some other time. We'll learn how to deal with those later in the course. Okay, so we're just using, that's why we're using those top ones, are a lot simpler. So we should find something in Kansas. Where's Kansas? My favorite state is Kansas. There's no place like home. Oh, no, I'm not from Kansas, but I have been to Kansas. Okay. You'll see why it's my favorite state here shortly. Right there is my favorite state, Gov County, Kansas. I was named after Gov County. Great Grandma Phelps crossing the plains, stopped in Gov County. They liked the name. They named their son after it. It's my great something grandfather. All right. So next, we want to bring in the data. Any thoughts on how we're going to bring that data in?
Through the county code?
Okay, so knowing that county code, in fact, let's think about this. Let's get up, as much as I like to deal with Gov County, let's go back up here to where the numbers are easier to work with. They're lower. I'm going to come down here to one I can pronounce, Baldwin County. So Baldwin County is the 4th county. If I find that data, if I find the data for Baldwin County, let's go see what it is. So I'm going to come to county names. There's Baldwin County. It's it's row number 4, but it's 1003. That's the identifier for Baldwin County. So if I come back to my data set, let me find 1003. Okay, so one thing we could do, we could go find that number. We could get that 1003. We could come back to this column, we could find the 1003 and go, aha, that's my row. But there might be a shortcut. Is there a shortcut?
Just use the row, the number.
So if I use the row number, so I think this is county number 4. Oops. So yeah, this is county number 4, but the data I want is not on row number 4. Where is it? 5. Row number 5. You think it's just +1?
Yeah.
Why would it be +1? There's a header on this. This data has a header. On the other one, it starts in row 1. This starts in row 2. So we can go, you know what? Once we got that number, we can just offset 1 and we'll get to the right row. So that's pretty good. So now we know this is the row we're after. So now we need to figure out, we got to bring over all of the data. It's going to start here in column A, and it's going to end where? Over here in column CE, whatever that is. Continuing education. Yes, that's what it stands for. So, any thoughts? So here's the thing. One approach would be able to say, you know what, I just want to build a reference to that range that starts in A and goes to CE. What don't I like about that?
It's not dynamic.
It's not dynamic. Let's suppose, well, I've been using the same example for 10 years, and so probably isn't going to change anytime soon, but let's suppose that some new data set was going to come in from the next census, and they got 4 more columns. Ugh. I would prefer for my code to adapt to that automatically. So how might I talk to me in terms of just the way you work with Excel? How would you figure out that dynamically? Go ahead.
Well, you find what that county code is, and then you pick the value, and you search for that value in this data set, and then you take the whole, from that, you select the whole row.
Okay. So in terms of figuring out the right row that we're after, I'm going to stick with our shortcut, which is just use the number. But now what you're saying is, look, just take the whole row. How many columns are there in a row? There are IV columns. Oh, actually, there's more than IV columns.
They go to like ZZZ or something.
It doesn't go to ZZZ. We won't see this until I close this and open it because I'm still in compatibility mode from opening it as XLS, as an XLSX. I'm going to close it. You don't have to close it, but I'm going to close it so you can see it. So I'm going to save. I'm going to close. I'm going to reopen it. And I'm going to go all the way to the end again. It goes XFD. You could count them over there, or you could go to your immediate window and you could just ask what the column of the active cell is. $16,384 columns. Once I got there, what would I do with it? I could like transpose it into place. Would that do? Let's see. My first one over here is going to be is that right? Residential population. Oh no, here's what I meant. What do I want to put? Hold on, I'm on the wrong one. Thank you. Data set. This makes more sense. Right, here we go. So just ANSI, yeah, I think it would. I think I could, if I was just to come to my compare sheet, yeah, ANSI, and then the next one, so I could just transpose it in there. So is there room for me to take that whole row and transpose it and put it down? Yeah, because there's like only 64,000 columns, and I got 1.4 million rows. So I could do that. And the truth is, Excel is probably going to be just fine with that. I mean, it's not going to go, it probably isn't going to copy 64,000 blank rows, like go through the process. It'll realize, oh, those are blank, don't copy them. But I would prefer to say, let's just narrow down just to the data and just refer to just that segment of data. So, other thoughts on how to get just to that set of contiguous data?
Select it and control shift right.
Aha! So, normally we might do this here and come right here, and I might say control shift right arrow, and that takes the whole contiguous set of data. Now, what's the one risk about doing it this way?
It might be a blank cell.
A blank cell is going to be deadly to me. And so here's another approach. Instead of starting here to find that last cell, instead of starting here and doing control right arrow to get to that last cell, what if I started way over here and did control left arrow? So I'm a little more confident that there's not going to be extraneous data off to the right than there won't be blank data in here. Now, this is Census Bureau data, and if I look at it, I'm going to see there really isn't any blank cell. But I want to teach you this way because it's a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more reliable. And once you see this way, the other way will be easy as well. Now, we got a little peek at this last time we were together. I really thought I muted my phone. It's a sales call from California.
Or a student.
What's that?
Or a student.
You could be a student.
Prank call.
All right, I'm going to look up and see who you're from California.
Michael Streeter.
All right. Come back to my immediate window. And here's another version of the range method. Let me just do it this way. Simplest way that I can refer to a cell is A1 and then in square brackets A10. And I want to, let's just print the address. Okay. So this has referred to a multi-cell range from A1 to A10. If I select that, you'll see it select that whole range. It selected that range. And so One way to use the range is just put a single argument that identifies the range I'm talking about. This could be a multi-cell range too, here. Or if I give it 2 cell references, it'll give me a rectangular range with all those cells in between. Okay, we're going to use what we know about that here in just a moment. Now let's see how I can find that last cell. So I'm going to do this. Cells, row number, let's say row number 6 for now. Column number 64,000. Now, that refers to a particular cell on this workbook. That would be like being on 64,000. Whatever column that is, way over here. It's not all the way at the end because it was like 64,300 something. But it's over here somewhere. So it's like being on this cell right here. Now, if I wanted to get to that, if I wanted to go over until I, if I wanted to go over until I hit the data, am I pointing the right way? Yeah, if I wanted to go over until I hit the data, what keystroke would I use? Control left. Now, turns out, before they invented the control key, there was another way to do it. I'm going to show you this way because it'll make a little bit more sense with the way it works in VBA. Using one finger at a time, I'm going to tap the end button, end. Ooh, look, I'm in end mode. And now I'm going to hit the left arrow. Two keystroke sequence, end, left. It works for up, right, up and down, left and right. So that'll make a little more sense if when I say this is referring to a particular cell, now there's a method of this cell called end. And I can put here to tell it to go to the left, which is just XL2 left. And I'll print the address of it. Cells. Let's see here.
Is there that many columns?
I think it's 16,000 something.
Oh, it's 16, not 64. And I'll go to 6,400. That's better. So that says, hey, wherever this thing was, go way out there, and then do like an end left or a control left. This little thing right here, I haven't really explained to you how this works. This is just a name for a value. If I print that value is negative 4159, which means when I pass negative 4159 to the end method, it knows to go to the left. We'll get comfortable. It's called a named constant. We'll get comfortable with that later. But would you rather put in negative 4195 or XL2 left? XL2 left is a little more friendly. It's not all that much more friendly. It's a little more friendly. Now, here's what I'd like to do. Instead of trying to figure out what that last column is here, I'd like to put an expression here that sends it all the way to the right-hand column. Any idea how I might do that? Well, I can ask it how many columns there are. Yeah, 16,000, not 64,000. So if I say columns.count, so columns is a collection of all the columns on the worksheet. Count is a property that tells me how many there are. And so that's going to give me however many columns there are. Now, how many of you, when you're writing that, you're getting like 255? That's because you're in open incompatibility mode. Back before 2007, a worksheet could only have 255 columns. Only 255 columns. How did we live? It's only 255 columns. And so if you closed and reopened, you'd have this. It doesn't matter. That's the nice thing, is that now it doesn't matter how far over I can go, because however far I can go, that's how far I'm going. It wouldn't matter if I'm opening compatibility mode or if I'm opening regular mode. It would just go, that's the last column, great, we're coming back from there. So I'm going to take this expression right here, which evaluates, for me, evaluates the 16,000, for you maybe 255. Where am I going to put it? I'm going to replace the 6,400 number with it. And so now, when it's trying to figure out which cell I'm starting on, it's going to figure it out based on what the very last column is. Oh, we're so close. We now just need to get rid of this 6. And what are we going to put for this? Like whatever cell, whatever's in A1. Now, so I just copied that from below. Compare exclamation point A1. However you want to get to A1, that would do it. Now, we've got to offset by 1 though, right? And so I think we have to add 1 onto that. Plus 1 there. So that CE5 should be the last cell that I'm after. Whew. Questions? So that expression will look at which county is selected, and it's going to give me, well, I don't want the address, but that's going to give me the cell right to there. That's going to be the cell that is the rightmost cell for the data that I'm after. Actually, we better make sure we're on the right sheet. What sheet is that on? That is the data set sheet. So I'm going to come in front of this and tell it that sheet. Sheets, data set, dot. Yeah, that's going to refer to that particular cell. That shouldn't change how this looks at all. But that'll be different now. Now it won't matter which sheet I have active. If a different sheet is active, that should still return the same reference. Because this line now knows it's dealing with the data set sheet. Seems like a lot of work.
Should we all be getting CE5?
If you have that up there, you should be getting CE, but the 5 comes from whatever county you have selected.
Oh yeah, so it just depends what county it is.
So it'll give you a different row depending on which county. And that's the whole point, is that we want the row that it returns to be based on whichever county is selected. How we doing, folks? So far, we've only gotten that rightmost column. We now have to build a multi-cell range that ends there and starts where? That's the easy part, column 1. And so, here's where we're going to use that range. Question mark, range, opening parenthesis, I'm going to give it a starting cell. Where's it going to start? Sheets data set. Oh, you know what? I'll just use this. I'll use this syntax right here. Oh, wait a minute. We have to know the row as well. So I'm going to use cells. So C data set, oh, it's going to start in the same row as this one here. And the column is the easy part here because the column is 1. Let me not use the range here yet. So I've got now just independently the 2 cells that I need. We've got an expression here. First one gives me the first cell in my data set. Second one gives me the second cell in my data set. Now I have expressions that tell me where the data starts and where the data ends. I'm going to use these 2 with that other form of the range method to be able to say I want the whole range that starts here and ends here. And so that syntax is just like this. Range, with the parentheses in there, I'm going to put some cell here, not address, just so I can see what's going on with it. So I'm just going to take, so we see the format here? Range, 2 arguments, and I want to print the address for now. And I'm just going to take what's here for my second, this is my second cell, and take that whole thing. Not the question mark, because that's saying print, not the address, because I want to refer to the cell. Not the address, but to the cell. I'm going to drop that in my second argument. And then I'm going to take everything up to, but not including the dot address. And that's my first argument. And the screen just isn't wide enough to show it all. And now that should show me one address that starts in A5, ends in CE5.
Professor Allen, couldn't you leave the dot address in there because essentially you're telling it the address anyways?
So, would this work with the address? And I think it's smart enough to figure out the address. But when I return just the address, that address does not include the sheet name. And so it would be a relative address to whichever sheet I'm talking
Well,
about.
I'm going to leave the dot address on your sheet within your range.
Here?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the problem. Here, let's do this. Let me try what you're suggesting. The truth is, I'm not positive how it's going to work, but I think it's not going to work. So here's a suggestion. Range, and give it something that actually evaluates. Whoops. With the address, that's what that evaluates to. So I'm just going to drop it in there so we can see it. And I want to print the address of whatever that evaluates to. Whoops. Okay. And so even just putting these in as strings, that would work. And that's what this returns. When this address returns, it just returns that as a collection of characters. But that only works. Oh, I didn't expect it to work. So yeah, you could leave address on there and it would work. No, you couldn't. Because this is evaluating to, let's just go ahead and do it. Wow, this is getting ugly. If, actually, turn away. Don't try to understand what I'm doing right now. What we're doing is we're saying don't end just with the reference to the cell, but actually bring the address in here as well. That will work when I'm on the data set sheet. Because this is going to actually go and say, I've got to go and pull the address from, well, now I'm not entirely sure. It works there. I don't think it's going to work here. It works there too. You could leave it just like that. That would work. I am doing it without the address because it's not necessary. It's actually a reference to a cell. And so this whole expression gets me to the address that I'm after. Now, I don't want the address. What I want to do is I want to copy that. And then I want to paste it somewhere else. So I'm going to take this whole expression here, and I'm going to bring it down here. And I'm going to copy. That is a long line. I'm going to go ahead and break it at this first argument so we get the whole thing on the screen. So I put the space underscore here just so I can get it onto the same line. Now I just want to do I want to paste. This is not going to be so bad to paste. Sheets. I want my compare sheet. Range. Where do I want to paste this? I want to paste this into B3. paste special. Now I got to tell it how to transpose. The truth is, I don't remember how to tell it how to transpose. One of these is transpose.
So it's just space transpose through the wall.
Oh, space. You may be right, although. Oh, wait, let's take a look at these arguments. Paste special, space. Paste as, paste all, operation. No, I think I got to pick one of these.
Transpose is the last one.
Oh, it is. Okay, very good. So it's going to be transposed colon equals true. This part here was just me snooping around. I'm going to type that in. So that will copy that, and it will paste it. Transposed. Ooh, that should bring in that data. It was a lot of work to build this line, or these two lines, but that's it. Could have been worse. So now we've got Calhoun County, and it's bringing in all the numbers for Calhoun County.
Can you show the problem?
Is there a space between space special and transpose?
Space between space special and transpose, yes. You're oh so close to having this done. What were we trying to do when we set out today?
Compared to.
We want to be able to compare two or more. We can have, it's a short amount to be able to make this do 2. Let's do that, and then I'll help you with any questions you may have. Super TA. Yeah, I think there might be people struggling with this. Maybe you can go around and help them find.
I was trying to find the problem. Who does need my help right now? You can help with it.
Okay. So let's suppose we want to put another column here. What does it mean? What does it mean to us? How do we have to adapt our code so we can get two columns? Or 3 or 4 or 5 columns? Any thoughts? Yeah.
You just make another drop down so people can choose which counties they want and then just move. So you just do the same thing over again except for.
So we could create another drop down so you pick the 2 that you want, and then it would just show both of those.
Yeah.
That's a possibility. But what I would like more, I would like to say, you know what, you want to do 2, 3, or 4, or 5. The way you do it is you pick your first one, and it's there. You pick another one, it puts another one in there. You pick another one, puts another one in there. So now, after I click this again, I want my data in columns B and C. So right now, all of this code assumes that we are putting values into column B. So, what do I have to do? Okay, so one approach would be to say, adapt this code, so instead of going into column B every time, it figures out where it should go and comes on the end. There's a simpler thing to do.
You can just insert a new column.
Yes. I'm always putting here in B, so let's just make it so that when I insert a new one, it's just going to, when I choose another county, it just inserts a new column at B and shifts everything over. Oh, that'd be better. So, before I do any of this stuff, I'm just going to say, sheets compare. Dot columns 2 dot insert. Columns is a collection of all the columns on the sheet. Which one do I want? Number 2. Insert a column there. There's other ways to get to a particular, to refer to the whole column. That's a simple way to do it. Now, the truth is, that is going to take on the width of the column to the left, so it's going to be really wide. Fortunately, there's a way to make it narrow. Again, after I put all the data into that column, I am going to refer to that same column again. And I'm going to say dot auto fit. Auto size? Auto fit. And that should do it.
Let's show the code one more time.
I'll show the code 2 more times. That's the example that we're trying to get to today, folks. And again, it was just looking at different ways to refer to ranges. Some of these are pretty complex. That's a big part of what we do with VBA. Of course, I'm going to post this code so you can compare yours to what we have here. But if you want to spend some time right now actually getting it to work, I'm glad to come around and help. Otherwise, that's it for today. Class dismissed. Let me go ahead and stop the recording.